actually sometimes they prefer if you don't have that much experience, they are aware of everything that's going on, even though you assume they are not. More people are not expecting to stay at agencies than you would think. They call up studios, execs, like places. So this guy wants to do this genre next year. Do you have something coming up? You're allowed to be introverted, but you also need to know how to present yourself. They're not gonna try to hide or mask their anger at you leaving. Like they're gonna take everything from you as soon as possible because they're like, we care about our clients, our materials. And there are interns who would not be as nice to other interns. In today's job market, it's so unpredictable. Your numbers are gonna win, like quantity is gonna win.
Well, also, I've been told at a company that shall remain nameless, if your application does not have a cover letter, they just throw it out. Lillian, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, welcome. We're so excited to have you just talking about, the corporate side of filmmaking, right? You guys are the people who make the movies happen, really.
Yeah. Well, first of all, talk a little bit about your USC journey, and you recently graduated. Walk us through how you got into film and how you got into USC.
So I stumbled into casting because I saw someone literally asking for someone to help with their big passion project full of like USC alums. So I stepped up. I was like, I'm into this field. I worked as a producer on like several short films. I was like, casting was fun. And once I joined that, I learned so much just through doing it. And somehow I got another project that was even bigger. So it just sort of like, I sort of got casting on my resume by stumbling into it. But casting actually really helped me get my agency job and my later casting internship. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of internships, sets are great and a lot of people are hands-on and they do want to just work on set, but there's this whole other sector in entertainment that's all about representation and all about making deals and making things happen. So talk a little bit about your experience in that world, whether it's through internships or jobs at production companies and whatnot. Like, what was your first step and how did that inform your creative process and also mapping out a career?
Yeah, I didn't really have a very specific map of my career when I first started applying to internships. Early on, it was just driven by stress. Like, everyone else getting one. If I don't get one, I'm not gonna find a job. Like I feel like we overestimate people's like exact idea of their life, because sometimes I feel like it's so much chance, opportunity, and we don't always know we're set on something until we've tried it. That I feel like that's why like mentors and professors tell us to just be open-minded about everything, because you don't really know where you're going to end up in and where you're going to be great in. But yeah, I started applying to internships when it was the earliest I could as an international student because of all the troubles I'm not going to, bother you with. But I was basically allowed to start applying around sophomore year. And at first I got those unpaid script coverage internships, and luckily I also found one that was working for like an independent producer, and I was doing script coverage for him, and I think many of his like writer friends were trying to like get into festivals, and he actually was so nice, he paid me. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's what the industry is like right now. Like, he was so nice, he paid me. But yeah, and then after that I got into another slightly bigger company that was head by a like an executive in the industry, and it was this private personal company. I also mostly did script coverage, but that was I basically did so much of the coverage, and I read a lot of books that the company was considering to adapt. So I just read so much, and the company it had a little more resources, so it was offering like talks and seminars with like writers and people in the industry. So that was the first one that really felt like an actual job. And during the same time, I was applying I think actually it was before I started that internship. I applied in October, I think, to a lot of internships, but also to CAA, because CAA is like, I'm not sure about other agencies, but CAA has a pretty long timeline of when you have to apply, and they're pretty specific about when's the, what place you are in your like educational career that you have to apply. So you basically have, the only chance you have is the summer before you graduate. So you can either be like a rising senior, or you can be someone who's graduating in December like me, but that's the summer you are allowed to intern for them. And you have to apply, if you're applying for, let's say, 2025 summer, you have to apply in 2024 October, and you're gonna hear back around like January, February of 2025, and you're gonna do your interviews, and you are probably gonna get an offer or not around March. So you're gonna hear back by March. So I was doing my spring internship when I heard back from CAA, and that's when I started. So I did, for that summer, I did CAA, and after CAA, I had one more semester left in my education. So that fall, I did a casting internship for Fox. So that's like the general timeline before I graduated.
How did you get your first CA like internship?
That's pretty crazy. I have reasons, but I think it's the same as, us saying this is the reason I got into USC. Like, you don't really know. You're like, I guess I did well in that part, but I don't really know. Like, I've heard like you need referrals to even get into those agencies, but I really just cold applied. I didn't have anybody's name I could put down. I tried to do that for other internships that I didn't get in. So, like, I guess, yeah, there's no rule. But I think I did pretty well in my first interview. I applied and I heard back from them that I was going to get an interview through a phone call. And I talked to a friend who actually interned for CAA like a year ago. So she was offering me advice on like how to do your interview well, and what CAA specifically looks for and what they like to hear. So yeah, and then I did my first interview. You always interview first with the HR department, and if they want to refer you to like a specific department that's gonna oversee you, then you do your second interview with an agent. I think if you're in like a more tech side or a different side, that your process might be slightly different, but for most of us it's HR, and you proceed to agent or agents. But I think the first round is the most important, because when I did my interviews with agents, I feel like they were just trying to know me. Like, they weren't trying to judge if I deserve the internship. I think once you pass the first round, you are 80% there. So that's the most important one.
Yeah. Did you just see it on the USC job listing thing? Or?
Yeah. I don't know. I think I was slightly aware of what agencies do, and I was like, I want to try it. And I didn't even have people tell me like agencies are the most important internships you can get. Like, I know that now, but like
Same.
back then well,
Same path.
no, you can still get into the mailroom. Like, there are many opportunities, but yeah, like I didn't even know. I was just trying everything. And I did casting, so I thought representation would be something that would be fun to try. But yeah, I cold applied and I did my interviews well, I guess. So that's how I got in.
What was the internship like?
Yeah, it was really fun. I think it really just opened my eyes to the industry. Like many people would say, it's the nexus point of the whole entertainment industry. Yeah. Like, you do so much more and you see so much more. For example, they have like a motion picture department, and that's separated into literary and talent. Yeah. And they have like TV, they have games, they even have like a philanthropy branch.
Music touring.
Yeah, music touring.
They're on the top floor, apparently.
Yeah. How do you know someone?
Somebody told me his name is Gabe Gantillo. I think you might have met him because he mentioned you.
Oh,
But
okay.
he's also USC. Okay. And I had a coffee chat with him earlier.
That's
but
very
go
cool.
on.
Yeah, okay, that's very cool. But yeah, and they have like comedy, so there's so much. And you, I think one thing they do very differently with their internship is like they're very caring of how much their interns learn, and they do care a lot about like providing return offers. They are actually training you to come back to the company. Wow. Like they're not just, we need someone to do script coverage for free. So right. So they actually do care about like making you a better, candidate for their company. So they care about training you, and on the very first day they emphasize that you should talk to as many people as you can. They don't have to be in your department, they don't have to be your agent. Actually, you don't necessarily have to just talk to agents. It's even better if you talk to their assistants, because they are closer to your timeline. Like they are very likely also new grads in the last 5 years, and they have basically a bit more time than the agents, so they can tell you more, and so it was very different and a very informative.
What were the tasks you had to do there?
It's different for every department. I was selected for TV talent. It was mainly I started doing some like avail checks. Those are things where right. So much.
A little bit.
Okay. So they're basically when like a new show or like a new season of a show or anything, like basically they're looking for talent to fill certain roles, and they basically get these lists from like other studios asking the studios would around pitch season or around like different season when they have a new show, they will send these list of roles they're looking for, and sometimes attach like these are the criteria we're looking for, and they will send it out to like all agencies, UTA, CAA, Gersh, everything, and they will ask, do you have someone that's fit for this role? And the companies will first respond with like this certain list of like 10 to 20 actors or even more, like, and I think I'm trying to remember exactly how it went because it was a while ago. But for avail checks, that's basically because each actor is represented by a team. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. But each talent is represented by a team at CAA. That's the specific way they work. Just like we don't want one agent to be responsible for one actor. We want like an actor to have a whole team servicing them. So they will be sending this list to the agents' assistants that are responsible for the actors, and you first respond with like, are they available for this specific timeline that the film or the TV show is shooting? Because if they're not even available, then you don't even need to proceed further. But if they are, sometimes they also say tech avail. That means technically available. But that could be saying they have this season 2, but if it gets canceled, they will be available. Yeah, so all that kind of stuff. So you basically sort of do avail checks because assistants are busy too. So you sort of, as an intern, you take over that and you also learn. And I also did like more promotional and marketing things, like looking at the TV shows that your talent recently did and trying to pick out like their best moments to work them into like their promotional materials. And I think there were just like many other smaller tasks, like if it's award season, you basically watch the awards and you pick out like the winners that are also our clients, and you like have to like compile that list and say, okay, our clients won. So like you basically do like more smaller tasks, but it's amazing for like an intern to just get a grasp of like what the industry is like, what the agency is like, even just learn the names of their clients. And so it was pretty fun.
Let's say like I am not a USC student, like how would someone like that get into an internship like this?
I met a lot of the other interns who are from not even film schools. There were people from Harvard who are not even in film, and there were also people in like actual like film schools like Chapman, but there weren't that many like USC students. There were also people from like liberal arts colleges that were not known for film, just like people from all walks of life. So I think it's part of it's up to luck, like getting that first interview. I think referrals can still help, but I did get it without a referral. So I mean, there's still a chance even if you don't have anyone to refer. I would just say just apply and craft your resume, craft your cover letter. Just be the best self you can be. And once you get that interview, really talk to someone who has done it before and ask interview tips. Do your best.
Yeah.
And yeah, but they're not limited to any school or experience. And actually, sometimes they prefer if you don't have that much experience, I think, because I'm not sure how true this is, but someone has said if you have already worked for like the biggest names in the industry and none of them want you back, then that's showing something about you. So that's why they're like, we don't want you to have like 3 previous internship with the biggest names, because maybe that's showing something. They don't want you long term. So, but I don't know how true that is. So, yeah.
Interesting. What was something like that was surprising that you learned that you didn't expect to learn at CAA?
Oh, okay. That's a difficult question. Let's see. Well, what's something I wasn't expecting to learn? I guess it's not that I wasn't expecting it, but it really surprised me just how incredibly smart and like hands-on and aware of their world that, agency people are. Like they I think at other companies, sometimes they might forget about what you're doing because you're a little intern. Like they'll check up on you, but you're expected to like hand in your work, and you're expected to ask questions whenever you have them. Like you should just do your things, and you get checked up every once in a while. I feel like at agencies really see how people remember your names. They remember what you did, and they are aware of everything that's going on, even though you assume they are not. Like they really pay attention to everything. I think that's how they are able to succeed. It's just like who people are at agencies. Everyone who stays at an agency is just so incredibly good at interpersonal skills. And they always emphasize like you need to read people well, you need to understand people, you need to expect your direct supervisor's needs before he or she talks about it. Like that's something they really emphasize. And it's so funny because a lot of the very senior agents, when they're doing lunch with us interns, they're saying like, it's 20 years later I've been at this agency and I still don't know what I'm doing. Like they will be humble about it, but I feel like there's a certain truth. Like you don't really necessarily have to have a particular skill. It's not like after working 20 years as a data analyst, you're like, I know exactly how to use this software. But they have such amazing, like extraordinary soft skills that are helping them succeed. And sometimes that's like hard to just put into words. That's hard to put onto paper, but they're really good at that. And you can tell once you're in that sort of world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you go about like because I know this might be true, might not be true, but as with every company, there's some form of hierarchy. Obviously, you got the assistants and the interns, and then the higher up, you got the agents and maybe even the partners and the CEO of the company. So how do you navigate a world where there is definitely some kind of structure, but like you said, the company does encourage people who are interns and to interact with the people who are on the upper levels. So how do you think the company handles that hierarchy?
Yeah, I would say not everyone handles it the same way. And there is definitely a hierarchy, but I think as an intern, you sort of get a privilege because they want you to learn about them. You are basically their, how do you say, campus ambassador. Like they actually tell you that on the first day. Yeah. There's, they want to give you information. They want to tell you about how great the company is. Like, you might even be surprised at how much they are trying to be in their best self in front of you because you're that intern, but you're also that student who will, tell all of USC how great CAA is. So actually, initially, I was like a little shy about talking to agents because I did get told by HR that, try to talk to more people on your level because that's going to help you much. And I sort of took that as, don't bother agents too much because if they're not even like if they're not in your department or in too much direct, relations to you. Like you have to like jump through hurdles just to like get them to set a time. But sort of halfway through my internship, I had a mentor figure in my department. He introduced himself to us. He was an agent in TV talent. He introduced himself to all three of us TV talent interns. And he said, let's set a time to do lunch. Just you, me, and my assistant. And I was like, oh my God, what? Like, that's amazing. And he buys you lunch. Like, he does all of that just to get to know you. And then when we had lunch, he's like, why aren't you talking to more agents? Like, we want to talk to you. And I would say he's not, not all agents are like him. He was extremely nice and kind and, willing to share. But he was telling me, like, I should try to reach out to more agents. Of course, still, reach out to their assistant and try to set a time, because their assistants manage their calendar. So don't just walk up to an agent and be like, hey, drop everything, I want to talk to you. Like, don't do that. Still be polite and know your place, but, try to reach out to them. And even if they don't reply, like, what are you going to lose? Like, they're not going to hate you because you try to reach out. So he said, like, to do your research, show you are sincere, you're not going to waste their time, but reach out to as many agents as you can. He was like, actually send out an email to 6 agents today. Like, that's your homework. Like, just try to reach out to people. And yeah, he encouraged like us to be brave and just reach out and network. And yeah, I forgot what the question was.
Oh no, yeah.
Like,
just like, yeah, communicating between, as an intern, how do you get to, but that answers my question, and that is, it can be pretty easy sometimes.
It can be intimidating for sure
Right.
when you're in that world, but I think
case by case,
you gotta be more bold and be polite. Don't waste your time. Be sincere. Do your research. Be your best self, and then just talk to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Do you see yourself working more in the agency world, or do you want to venture into different paths? Because I think CAA understands, and a lot of other agencies too, that as floaters or whatever, mailroom clerks, that eventually after a year or 2 or 3, they might want to, enter into, be a writer's assistant or producer's assistant. So where do you see yourself into? Do you think you'll have a decision after you've kind of worked some time there, or do you think you have something in mind now?
Yeah. I want to also address like how agencies can be a little different from studios.
Yeah.
I think with studios, if you're not on a contract, like you actually become like an official employee, you sort of expect to stay there and get promoted. Like, I think that's a general path you expect with studios. But with agencies, that's something that also surprised me that I forgot earlier. But more people are not expecting to stay at agencies than you would think. Like, I'm not saying you should use it as a jumping board, because many people still go to agencies and realize they really love being an agent, and many people
Right.
are just exploring. And it's also a great place to start, because we also call it the graduate school of entertainment.
Right.
Yeah, because you come in with like your cohort, your mailroom people, and they're the same year as you, and you sort of grow together and you become assistants together, like you make great friends. So for many people, it's just a great way to like start your career when you get out of film school. But it is true that it takes a long time from an assistant to an agent. There are also exceptions with, like, I've heard some extraordinary people who signed clients when they were an assistant and they immediately got promoted like 2 years out of college. Those people exist, but I'm saying, like, for most of us, like, the normal path to become an agent is gonna take you, I think, around 8 to 10 years between like working as an assistant and an agent. So that could be a long time for many people. And some people do find out that they want to do something else other than agent. Like, they have a great experience, but they realize it's not for them to become an agent, or they have like another dream they want to pursue, and now they have an agency experience that's gonna, lift them to that opportunity. And also there are people who say they want to be a writer's assistant, and they start in, TV or motion picture literary, and they, become an assistant to an agent who oversees writers, producers, like writers' rooms, and they learn and make those connections. And once they finish that, once they finish their time as an assistant to that person, they now have a great like jumping board to their next job. So there are many people who want to do different things at agencies, and agencies understand that they are not like expecting everyone to want to stay or want to become an agent. Like they totally see how they are a jumping board in a way, and they sort of pride themselves on that, because they also say like, if you work for CAA once, we will always have a connection no matter how like where you go. And maybe 10 years from now, your old boss wants a favor from your studio that you now work at, and we have a connection. So they love like having people there and helping them grow and helping them reach new heights. So that's why I sort of recommend to everyone, like, if you don't exactly know what you want to do, like, try to go to an agency. It's like a great place to start and grow.
And just to follow up to that, when I was just a year ago, I was really confused about what an agent did or even why agencies existed. So just for our listeners, in your words, how would you describe the purpose and the role of an agency / an agent? What exactly do they do? Because I feel like it can be hard to understand at first when you're just starting out to venture in this industry in general. Like, why do they exist? I only know like Warner Bros, Paramount, and all that.
Yeah.
But there's all these there are these like companies like CAA and UTA who play such a significant role. So in your words.
Yeah. Well, I can only speak for the department I was in, because I don't see everyone's, so I can't be sure if it might work differently for others. But I would just say they really make phone calls all day. Like, that's the most action I see in the agency. But they get so much done in those phone calls. And some assistant told me that their agent is so well in basically getting to her goals that she can start a phone call on different sites. Like, if she's on a call with like a studio exec and they want different things, she can end the call making the exec want what she wants. So that's how good they are at their job. And like, they get so much done in their phone calls. And I used to think they have to be in person, start those meetings, and like have actors and everyone present just to negotiate. But really, that doesn't happen as often as you think. And especially, I think it also changed after COVID. Like, most of those negotiations, those like big meetings that decide the fate of a film, or like that gets an actor hired, all of these things happen in those phone calls. And they just make these calls from like, the moment you see them to you leave. Like, that's just what they do all day, but they get so much done. So yeah.
Would you want to be an agent one day, you think?
I think it'll be fun, but we'll see. It's interesting. And CAA says like their main goal is just to service their clients in whatever way. So that's why they have like teams of agents working for like one client, because a client might be primarily an actor, but maybe he or she wants to direct. And now they also have that department of agents ready to serve this client. And if the client has like a commercial, or like if they just won an award and now everybody wants them to do like something, all these departments can come together to service that one client, and the client doesn't have to go out and look for other representations to help him in that particular field. So I think that's how they're also able to keep so many amazing clients at their agency. It's just like the way they function too.
It's cool that you find it really fun, because I think that's a kind of a counter perspective than a lot of people think, and especially people who are trying to get into the creative space. For example, like, I'm currently working, interning at this production company where my boss was in the CAA Mailroom for 3 months before she got the job now. And she thought, from her perspective, that is, what everyone needs to get into if they want a job as an assistant or more higher jobs, because the mailroom or working at an agency is like the prerequisite for a lot of these jobs. But when she was talking to that about working the mailroom to us interns, pretty much all of my intern friends were like, no, I don't want to go to the agency. So like, what do you think? Because they think it's like soul sucking, desk job, whatever. But like, what do you think makes you, enjoy it so much? Like, why is that something you think is right for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess I like to talk. Like, I don't see making phone calls as like boring, but I understand how it can be boring to some people. And I think it's fun making things happen. And so many films that we see, they are financed by agencies, and they basically the whole induction of the film, like from idea to finding a director, finding a writer. Like, we sometimes think the idea just started somewhere, like maybe with the director, and like they just found a bunch of people and they just made the film, and they just call all their friends and be like, do you want to be in my film? I guess that's how like film school kind of works, but that's not how the actual industry works. I was also surprised to learn like how many agents read so much, and they find a book they want to adapt, and they call up a director and they call up a writer and say, I love this book, I love this IP, we might try to represent this writer, we're looking for a screenwriter that we represent to write a script, and we're looking for a director we represent to direct this thing. And then we're gonna try to, they're still going to consider if actors fit the roles. They're not going to just be like, oh, we're going to stuff all our clients into this one thing and it's just going to be our CAA thing. That's ideal for them, of course, because all of their clients get to make money on something they created. But yeah, they still try to look for outside talents. They try to look for fit as well. But so much of these products starts in agencies, and I wasn't aware of that. So yeah, like I think you are still very creative, even if you're seemingly sitting behind a desk. You still get to make these things happen, and agencies do still do script coverage. They still read materials. They still, when they're trying to like, recommend an actor to like a director or something, they still, try to like help the actor get it. They help the actor understand the role and help them make sure the job lands. And they have to pitch so much. And it's just amazing. Like when I hear those phone calls, like some agents, like they have such a big memory. They know what this actor wants to do next year. They know exactly what this actor doesn't like, and they just keep all that in their like sort of memory bank. And they just call up like constantly. They call up studios, execs, like places, and they basically sometimes even cold pitch, like, so this guy wants to do this genre next year, do you have something coming up? Like they might even say that. So yeah, like so much of the industry happens in an agency, but we don't see that because they're not exactly listed on IMDb. So that's something I was surprised to find out.
Yeah, I also on a lot of deadline articles where deals happen, I would read in the end that CAA Media Finance brokered the deal. I feel like I've read that sentence like 100 times at this point. Even for like very independent films, like if something sells to Neon or A24, somewhere in the bottom it's an agency.
Yeah.
A lot of times CAA brokering the deal. Are you familiar with how that process works? Like in your imagination or from what you've learned so far, like how would that process be like for a film, say going into a festival or something and having it being sold to a distributor, and what's the role of CAA's media finance team in that process?
Yeah, I wasn't in that department, but I did hear another intern talk about their experience in that department. Because at first, when I heard finance, I thought, oh, that's an econ student who's gonna I don't know, punch numbers all day.
Numbers to see if it makes sense.
I know. Yeah, I thought that's what finance was.
Right.
But then I talked to them at a party, and they're like, I just read 5 scripts, and I was like, you read scripts in finance?
Okay.
But yeah, so I am not particularly sure, but I think they also read materials and work these things out and find out IPs that are best for adaptation. And I think they also cover the whole process. I mean, as interns, they probably don't, they're not in on everything. But yeah, that's something that surprised me about finance department as well. Like they do a whole packaging deal from the very beginning. Yeah.
So like from your perspective as someone who's in the agency, like looking out, like how does someone like a creative, like someone like a director or actor, like how do they get representation from a place like CAA, you think?
I mean, that's an interesting question because I would say it's not hard to get representation, but it's very hard to get representation from, the biggest agencies.
Yeah.
I think by the time you get like a representation from like CAA, you wouldn't be wondering how to get representation. Like it's always like I'm trying to think. But it's very often because I was getting like the email sort of like newsletter when I was an intern of like, oh, we just got this client. Like they send that out to every employee. And it would be very often, oh, I remember it was, I don't know if I can say exact clients. Like sometimes you are aware of which clients are belong to which agency, but sometimes they don't. So I'm not sure. But I'll just say sometimes a hit show comes out on Netflix and the actor is a young aspiring new actor who has only been in short films before, so of course they don't have a big representation. But if the show becomes so hit. Big, like everybody is calling to see if this actor wants representation, or like sometimes if they're British actors and they get a hit show in America, I feel like, or I'm already spelling the name, but if it's a British show and this British guy doesn't have an American representation, everyone's gonna be calling them like, do you like, so it's these kind of people that they're not looking for representation. They have calls coming in and they get to choose. So that's like true. It's so by the time you get representation from these big companies, you're the picker. Like you get to choose.
It's probably better to choose than beg them to represent you.
Right.
You probably get better people.
Right. And also the reason for that is, if they're representing Tom Cruise, like you don't want them representing you if you're starting new, because they are gonna give all their attention to Tom Cruise. Like they're not gonna care about you. You want someone who actually can spend time on you and want you to succeed and has enough time for you. Like they have, if they have a great actor, like they can, even if they sign you. So,
And the other side of like representation is management. And we took a class together last semester that sort of spelled that out a little bit. But just for our listeners, in your view, what's the main difference between a manager / management company and an agency / an agent?
Yeah, the most fundamental difference is an agency is full of like a team of agents that service one client, and they each have their own department. So the agent, let's say like a TV talent agent, would mostly look for TV jobs for their client. And then if the client's also a comedian who's an actor, then the comedy touring department would be, looking for touring opportunities. So they are a team servicing the same client in different fields. And the agent is more like a niche, like a specialty. If you're a manager, you're basically doing everything for your client, like from taking care of like their life to getting them jobs to like mapping their career trajectory. Like you're responsible for everything. And that's why some actors would choose to only have a manager and not an agent if they realize that's what's best for them in their particular point in their career. And sometimes people have their wife as their manager because that's it just makes sense, I guess. So that's the most fundamental difference.
Great. I mean, you were speaking on like you need a lot of soft skills to work at these agencies. Like, can you give some examples of what it is to take, to be a great agent or assistant?
Yeah. I think based on my observation, I think everyone at an agency really are like, they're passionate about the industry for sure, but they also understand exactly what it is they're doing. Like they don't think a task is too small. They don't think I can, bring coffee because, I graduated from this like top film school. I can't do this like small task. Like they understand that we are all trying to meet this one goal. Like assistants, mailroom like agents, even though there's a definitely hierarchy, like we're all trying to make certain things happen. We're all trying to get a job for a client. So even if you're just bringing coffee, you're like it might be helping an agent make the next phone call, and that phone call is going to get the job. So everyone understands that there's no task too small. And those people have like good interpersonal skills. You're allowed to be introverted, but you also need to know how to present yourself. You need to speak up when it's important. You need to ask questions if you don't understand. You just have to understand that your personal impediments cannot get in the way of getting the job done. Like, no matter what, they don't really care if you're like a particular personality. They don't stop you from getting to the mailroom if you're a certain type of person. They don't even care if you're just using it as a jumping board, but they want to make sure every minute you spend there, you understand what the assignment is, you know what's the goal, and you're willing to do anything necessary to help the whole agency succeed. So yeah.
How do you go about like being proactive with anticipating someone else's needs? Is this something that comes naturally for some, or is this like a skill that one can practice over time?
I think it also comes with time. Just being with a boss for a long time, you understand their personality. You understand like if they're, I guess if they walk a certain way, they're pissed today, and you know how to best approach them,
Right.
like just to make sure, like, yeah, just the longer you spend with a person, the more you understand their needs, and to not take anything personally, I think is also important as an assistant. That's also a question I got asked when I was like doing my return offer interview. They're asking like, how do you deal with difficult personalities? And I said like, I understand the goal, I understand the task, I don't take things personally, because I know like, yeah, there are many things that can happen at work, but you need to be focused on what the true task is, and not to let other things get in the way. I think just, yeah, understanding that, and also really paying attention to the people around you, trying to read people anytime you see people, and trying to make sure, I think as long as you see the work as the priority, then you naturally know how to approach people who are also trying to reach the same goal. Yeah.
What do you think is like the difference between the top agencies, like CAA, UTA, WME, and stuff? Like for example, working there.
I mean, it's the clients, I think. I haven't personally been with like smaller agencies, so I wouldn't really know. But yeah, you see the biggest clients, you see all these Oscar winners
Adrian
like
Brody.
walking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
He said
Yeah.
in his
Oh,
Oscar
yeah.
speech, he was like, "Thank you to my CAA team."
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a team. Yeah.
Yes, it is a
Yeah.
team. Yeah, that's important. Yeah, you see those like big names walking the halls, and you're like, oh my god, I'm actually working at this place. Like it's crazy. Like, yeah, and you see those stars like walking their dogs like across the hall. You're like, oh my god. But I think that's the main difference. I don't really know about smaller agencies, but
Well,
I
even
guess
like
yeah.
like even WME, like that's not like a smaller. Like, do you ever
Yeah.
feel like there's like a rivalry between the agencies, or?
I mean, that exists for sure.
Uh-huh.
I don't really feel it when I'm an intern, but I definitely know that. I don't know how much I can say, but I guess like you're not. If you're trying to go from one place to another, like you can feel the furry, like like they like with clients too. Like there's a definite emotion with, like if you're trying to go from like one big agency to another, then it's like it's big, I guess. Like they really care. They're not gonna try to hide or mask their anger at you
Right.
leaving. Like they're gonna take everything from you as soon as possible, because they're like, we care about our clients, our materials. And it has happened in agency history where some agents leave and take away clients, so they are very sensitive about that. So yeah, you definitely feel that, but other than that, you don't really see the rivalry every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of people who work at the agency like are people who aspire to be directors one day, or like is there a lot of creative people there, or is that just mostly like businessy people?
There are definitely creative people. Like we said earlier, like people aren't one particular way. You see writers, you see aspiring writers, actors, directors, and you also see aspiring agents. It's just like, yeah, people from all walks of life start at agencies for their reasons. So it will still make sense if you're like a creative. I would still recommend trying an agency, even just for an internship. Like, it's always fun and you learn so much.
Yeah, I did read somewhere that the director of Hot Summer Nights with Timothy Chalamet in his like one of his very first roles, I think that was the director's like debut film, and he also worked at CAA for some time, and I think he just one day he just went up to his boss or someone and was like, I got this script or something. Something happened where he got his script around and somebody actually liked it and made it happen. So, you know, it is definitely a viable path. Speaking on that, I do know that one of your career goals is to potentially become a showrunner. How do you see working at an agency like CAA as an opportunity to get you there and equip you with the necessary skills?
Yeah, I would say like a showrunner is like an ultimate goal. That's, you know, that's like a dream if it can happen. But if there's anyone who want to go in that path, who want to be a sort of exec on their own show or something, I think being at an agency, you get an incredible network. You meet people who have done that. CAA represents showrunners. They represent everybody basically in the industry. You can find a client that's basically doing what you want to do in the future. And the closer you are to them, the more likely you can learn about how they did it. And you might even become friends with them. And, you know, like, I'm not saying like you should become friends with clients and stuff, but, you know, the closer you are to what they're doing, the closer you are to the inner workings of how, you know, running a show is, to how writing is, to how, you know, a writer's room works. Like, it's always going to help you in the long term. So yeah, it's mostly just information and network.
That's sick. And earlier you talked about how you had an internship at Fox as well. What was that internship? Like, what was that?
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I got it is CAA too, because I applied in the summer. I was working for CAA and I started working in the fall. And I was working in the casting department. The whole department was really friendly, and my execs were like, my supervisors were very, very nice. And they actually also told me that because I have done like some PD work in the past, I did some installations, and they said they looked up my website from my resume and they said like, that was interesting. And they were like, it was like, I don't think that's the reason why they wanted me, but they were like, you left an impression. So you never know what gets you a job. So yeah, be yourself, be creative. Don't be afraid to show anything. Like, if it doesn't fit on your resume, like, you know, put it on your website, make it cute, and like make you look interesting. Yeah. Be yourself, and sometimes that might be the reason why they, you know, noticed you. So you never know. But yeah, so I did. It was a lot of like similar things. To my surprise, there were a lot of similar things that I actually did at my CAA internship as well, because I initially wanted to do casting on the studio side because I wanted to see the other side of casting and representation. And it was funny because the first big meeting I got to sit on at Fox with a meeting with CAA. So it was like, oh my God, like, yeah, yeah, full circle moment. And I saw how my department was pitching things to an agency and telling them about, these are our new shows and these are who we're looking for. And they would even, it's very funny because they will be saying like, it will be amazing if we can get this actor, but we're not picky and we're willing to, you know, settle for these as well. Yeah, of course, not naming names, but yeah. And the agencies will also be sort of like strategically saying, we're gonna talk to these people and we'll see what we can do, you know, like it's just so fun to sit in at those meetings and see how people negotiate and talk and, you know, still be, you know, their best self. And yeah, and I think the most valuable thing was also just listening to those meetings. I also got to sit in on like weekly casting meetings and hearing about how each show is going. And the casting department does so much more than just putting an actor on a show. They also, you know, they watch the show when it comes out. They watch, you know, the pilot episode when a new show is airing. And, you know, they pay attention to audience reaction. They have like a test screening. They also watch that. And on like, let's say a comedy show, they would even pick out that part wasn't funny, and they're like, but that's not the actor's fault, that was like writing, we're gonna send it back to the writing team. But also like they don't have power in like, I guess, like people who are not that close to the like to the casting side. Like sometimes they would have their opinions and they're gonna send that to maybe the producing team or the writing team, but they don't get the say really. It's just a suggestion because they're more on the casting side, but they do all that. So it's, yeah, that's what also surprised me. Like they do a lot of the things. And yeah, like they also during pitch season, which is like January of every year, it's the most busy for them. And during the fall it was a little more chill, but I still got to do like a project. I got to like read on scripts they were currently casting for, and I offered my own casting choice, and I did my own presentation and a little pitch. So it's just a great way to practice how to like pitch and present yourself. Yeah.
How do you like go about casting though, especially in that environment? I feel like it must be a little bit different than casting for like indie student projects. Like
Yeah.
obviously the caliber of talent, but how does the company and how do you go about like selecting the right actor for the role?
Yeah, I would say there's no pressure from the casting department because they are only used, like they want you to succeed and they're using this project to help you. They're not necessarily gonna judge you on who you pick. So you don't really have any pressure to be like pick the right people because there's no right people. They just want to see if you can, talk about why you chose this actor and this list of actors for that role and how you think of that role. And sometimes like what you say might affect them. I think there was this one show that had a role and I sort of called him like an internet baby girl kind of role, and I was like, I have these actors for this role. And some people in the department knew what that meant and someone didn't, and she's like, what do you mean? Like, tell me about it. Like, I'd love to learn. That's so funny. So, like, don't be afraid to, like, be yourself and just really offer how you think. And that's something also I realize a lot of, like, the big companies do look for. They want you as Gen Z to offer your advice because they are looking for fresh blood and they want that because you are unique and you offer your generation's views. So, yeah. And so you really get a whole world of actors to choose from because there's no rule. It's not like at an agency you should pick the clients for projects you're doing. Like you get to pick anything as long as you can justify it. And yeah.
That's great. And how did you get like the return offer from CAA to like invite you? Like what was that like?
I think it happens while you're doing the internship. Like it's not about the interview because by the time you get the interview they probably already want you. They're just trying to make sure you want to come back. So just do your best, be yourself while you're doing your internship. Talk to as many people as you can. I actually had a little trick that I think helped leave an impression because they're also telling you that you should write a thank you card to everyone you talk to. And I know some people might just write thank you and like just give it to them, but I was like, I'm not like that busy. I have some time and I want to make these nice, and that's who I am because I always love like decorating little journals and I love like doing that. So I brought like my own basically decorations. I brought like those decorative tapes. I did a bunch of like extra stuff and I made those thank you cards really pretty, and I like wrote nicely. I wrote like paragraphs and just being sincere to every person I talk to. And sometimes they'll just be like, oh, thank you, that's so nice. And sometimes I even got emails telling me like, did you write that? That's so pretty. Like, thank you so much. I love it. And I didn't do it because I want to, stand out or particularly, but I just liked it. And somehow that helped me leave an impression. I think that might have helped. And other than that, just doing your job. Don't be a bad person to anyone. Like, don't, like, you might be surprised, but there are interns who would like not be as nice to other interns because they think they only have to appeal to the upper levels. But like I said earlier, they see it. agents are agents for a reason. They're very good at interpersonal skills, and they see how you treat other people who might be below you or the same level as you, and they do not tolerate that, especially at agencies. Something that CAA says is when we take good care of each other, good things happen, and they see it when you're not taking good care of other interns, and they're gonna kick you out. They're not gonna take you back. So like be your best self, be good, network, and try to leave an impression when you can, and just be good to people. I think just once you get the internship, it's very hard to do wrong unless I guess you're a bad person.
Wait, so when you said you were thanking people and giving them the thank you card after you talked to them, like what does that mean? Like did you like say hi to like Steve down the hallway, or was it after, or is it like after like a coffee chat you would write a letter, or like how?
Yeah. Obviously, if you just said hi to someone, you don't need to write
right.
thank you for saying hi. But if you do say hi to someone, try to schedule a coffee chat. Like anyone you meet and talk with, try to schedule a coffee chat. And sometimes they might be so busy, they're like, yeah, we can spare like 15 minutes to try to chat. It's not going to be like, sometimes you get those 1 hour lunch and sometimes you don't. But any sort of coffee chat, like once it's over, you write a thank you card. That's at other places it might just be a nice gesture, but at agencies it's sort of a must. Like if you don't write it, they're gonna remember it too. So like anytime you get a chance to talk deeply with someone and ask for their like experience, opinion, like anything, once it exceeds a simple hi, you should write a thank you card.
I kind of learned that like early on too. Like I was on a set, I was literally just like a boom operator for like half a day, and then the director just gave me this thank you card that just
really?
And that was like, whoa, I felt seen. I was like, that gave me such a like a heartwarming feeling that even though I was just doing like almost like a volunteer help, like that somebody actually saw that I contributed. I don't know, something like that. And I think that's such a like a genuine thing that can really
especially coming from a director, like
I did not
remember
expect
that
at all. So that's why I kept doing that in the future. Like if I'm directing or producing, like I try to like write up something just to appreciate the fact that they're even willing to help and do something. But
That's awesome. That's smart. I never heard of this before really, and I'm gonna start doing that too.
It's like a personal touch, like
it goes such a long way.
It does.
You might think it's just a card, but it goes a long way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I have a question actually, because I think a huge part of getting these internships is your resume and cover letter. Like, do you have any advice on like what made your cover letter or resume stand out?
Let's see. I have tried all the tips that I've ever gotten. I've tried everything, and one thing I realized, there's no one trick that's gonna get you an offer. I've tried looking up templates. I've tried like just writing completely from the heart. I've like done those longer ones and shorter ones. I've tried being more like technical and just be like mentioning my skills while also mentioning my experiences and talking about things that's not on the resume, things that are on the resume. I've tried like just completely bring my own touch, and there are also internships that ask for what's your favorite TV show from last season, and I try to put more personal touch into that, and then fusing it with my typical cover letter where I talk about my experience and tailoring it. I've tried everything. Also having like after a certain time, you write so many cover letters that you are gonna start having cover letter, talent, cover letter, script coverage, cover letter development, cover letter production. Like you just have all these ready, and then you tailor them. So like relatable. It's what everyone does. Like you're not gonna write a new cover letter every time. It's not realistic. I'll say like there's no particular trick that's just gonna get you in, but still do it. Like try your best, and try to tailor it towards them, and just don't make basic mistakes like you're applying to Amazon, but you write a cover letter to like Universal. Like that's the thing you should not do, because they understand you're not writing a new cover letter to every job, but they also don't want to see it in front of their face. Like, oh my god, like they want to at least imagine you're writing this just for them. So yeah, just be yourself. Try, to write it to the best of your ability. Don't stress too much about it. It's more important to write them and send them out than it is to write a perfect cover letter. I think in today's job market, it's so unpredictable. Like your numbers are gonna win, like quantity's gonna win. So think about finishing your cover letters and sending them out and applying early, more than how can I craft this cover letter so it's like, your college admission letter. Like, don't think too much about it. Just write them and send them out and do your best.
Is there like a certain length that you find works for you?
I usually do a page to a page and a half.
Wow, that's a lot.
Is it?
I usually do like close to one full page, but not exactly full.
Like,
Yeah.
That's what I've been told, at
or single space?
Single space.
Okay, I do.
That is a lot.
I think I might do a little more than single space. So
Oh, okay.
maybe
So
we're
it
the
evens
same
out.
length.
All right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Because I want to, I sort of also format it so it looks like my resume, because my resume has like this heading that has my name and like all my information.
Yeah.
And I make it kind of pretty, not like too extra, but
flash,
kind of
yeah,
pretty.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh.
I put the exact same heading on my cover letter, and then I put my resume in the same document as my cover letter. So when they scroll, basically they're always singing my name on the top. Like there's never a page where it's like they see just a page, because I understand they read like,
interesting.
tens to hundreds a
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Like if they have to look for your name, sometimes they could be like, never mind,
Wow.
But if they see your name like multiple times in the same
That's a good
document,
idea.
they'll be like, hey, that person. So,
Wait,
I don't know
you
if
put your
that
resume
works,
on
but
top and then your cover letter as the cover letter document, or
it doesn't really matter. I think
Okay,
sometimes
gotcha.
it's just put them in the same document.
I think that's so smart.
Yeah.
Like thinking from that
Yeah.
perspective, like
Yeah.
because if I were reading like thousands of resumes, like if I'm seeing like just another formatted letter, that might be I
Yeah,
don't
you
know.
might forget who it's from.
Yeah.
And if you submit them separately, then it's even harder.
Yeah,
Because
right.
they have to, like, if they like the cover letter, they have to be like, who is this person again? How do I find their resume? If they
Right.
have to go, like, I've heard that the easier you make them, then the easier it is they can accept you. Like, the easier it is they can offer you something. So make
Maybe-
things as easy as possible for people you're begging things from, I guess.
Like,
yeah.
like maybe that's the reason why I'm not getting anything, because
you don't know that.
Well,
Wait, I think that's
I didn't know it has to be
minute. Nah,
that
nah,
long.
nah.
I read like a paragraph. I don't know, like half a page.
Maybe somewhere between half and the full page.
Because I was like, I
Yeah.
just assumed they were too busy to read so much. I'm like, I won't make you read so much.
Yeah, but like,
I don't know.
they
Yeah.
might just read a sentence, but you should write a page.
Right.
That's
Because
so
they
valid.
see a page.
Also,
Yeah.
I've been told at a company that shall remain nameless.
Valhalla.
No, actually no.
Okay, right back.
I will not say anything, but a company.
Sorry.
You neither confirm nor deny.
So yeah, yes, exactly. That like they say they say you should obviously submit the resume, but the cover letter is optional. If your application does not have a cover letter, they just throw it out, even though they say it's optional. So I think that
It's a test.
it's
Wow.
almost in a way, like, cause I mean they want to see that you actually. Like, they want to see who you are besides, like, a resume.
Yeah.
But also, they want to see, like, why you actually want this. Because resources are limited and jobs are limited. And if you don't show in some way that you're you and that you are passionate about getting this position, then, it's just always a good thing to
Yeah.
have.
Makes sense.
for
That's
sure.
a
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna start
Yeah.
changing that
They
up
want to
now.
see you're willing to put in the time at least. Like, they
Yeah.
might not read it, but
Right.
they want to see there's a page there.
Now, Richard, do you use AI on your cover letters?
Actually, good question.
We're going there.
I use it to bounce off ideas.
Me too.
I would write one and I would let it give me some potential positive and negative feedback, and I incorporate the ones that I think are good, and I just leave out the ones that are like, nah, that's not what I meant at all. Like it would give me
Okay.
sometimes pretty bad advice, and I would just
Yeah.
ignore those.
Yeah, me
But yeah.
too. I use it to edit it.
Yeah,
And
same.
sometimes
Okay,
I
yeah.
will have, multiple sections, and I will put it in and ask like, is this paragraph too long? Should I cut this? And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Now I'm curious, how does AI play a role in these talent agencies, with it being more and more efficient and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my experience is from the summer of 2024, so it might be more updated now. But back then, like, they already acquired this. There's this movie starring Tom Hanks. It's called Here, and they use AI to make Tom Hanks look
The
different
face, yeah.
ages. I mean, I know people have different opinions about AI, but personally, I think that's just like one side of technology that could be good for, because you're not gonna cast someone else to play Tom Hanks young. You were just gonna do it with makeup, and they probably did, but they also added AI to make sure he looks more like that age. And I think that's, like, in my opinion, that's a good use of AI. And CAA actually acquired a technology
That's right.
to do that.
Whole vault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they acquired the technology, and they actually had a meeting to show everyone like how that AI technology works. And I also heard from like an exec that AI is not going to replace you, but if you don't know how to use AI, you will be replaced.
Wait, that is like the
So-
fifth time I've heard it say
Yeah.
that exact thought. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
my dad has said it, my other
my
friend
God.
not in film has said it. He's pre-med, and then you have said it, and then somebody else has
In
said
many
it. Yeah, it's
different
like
ways.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's like you gotta yeah, like they still want a person to do the job that an AI might be able to do a little bit, but if you're the person who can utilize that while also being a well-rounded employee, then obviously I think you would be a better choice than just a algorithm. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we're all just regurgitating that idea to everyone,
Yeah.
so we hear it so many times.
Honestly,
but like,
yeah. But I think there's some
yeah.
truth to that.
Yeah,
There's definitely
yeah.
there's a lot of truth
If
to
we're
that. It's true.
regurgitating, we agree with it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, I mean, outside of like making films though, like how do you see AI being like a scheduling thing or like communication thing, organizational thing? Like, is that something being used or no?
I didn't see it being used.
Okay.
I guess if they are able to completely replace scheduling, they still wouldn't replace assistants, because assistants do so much more.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
just
And
yeah,
it's so like person to person that
yeah.
it would be really, really weird if like an assistant is just a straight, complete,
Yeah.
that would be weird.
And agents sometimes, like, you might hear that certain agents would keep the same assistant for years because they couldn't find anybody else to do the same job.
go, yeah.
Like, yeah, if a human can't even replace that human, then how could AI replace them? Like, I don't think, like, at least with the technologies we have now, like, they're not gonna be better than an actual assistant who fits. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But if you're like an independent producer, you're like one man, one woman team, then AI could help, I guess.
The other day, I heard a statistic that a lot of assistants make the same amount of money or even less than McDonald's workers. It was crazy because the talents are making like tens of millions of dollars, but the assistants make so much less. Is that something like you hear working at the agency? Like, do people talk about that?
I don't think assistants talk to interns about that. And if you're like, I feel like as interns, when you're trying to have those coffee chats and learn from their experience, you're not gonna bring up how does the salary keep, like, but you do see it from like more minor details. Like, you notice it, like you see how a lot of them do need roommates to afford to rent a house, because like in LA, like the minimum you have to pay for like a single person studio is like at least 2K. And you likely won't be able to afford that if you are only making your own money, you don't have mommy and daddy's money, and you're trying to make your living as an assistant. You probably can't afford to live by yourself. So yeah, it's definitely not that much money. But it's the same, I would say, for entry levels across entertainment. So that's not a reason to choose like a studio over an agency, because if you're entry level, you get paid the same way. But that is a reason why people don't stay at an agency as an assistant for many years. If you work at a studio and once you get promoted, you are no longer earning that salary. And that can happen within like 1 or 2 years of working there. But at an agency, the path is like more singular. Like, if you start in the mailroom, you get promoted to an assistant, and you basically get a few dollars added on. Like, it's not a few dollars added on per hour, not like, monthly.
Right.
But yeah, and you might get promoted to become a coordinator. You basically become the assistant of the whole department. You're higher than other assistants in a way, but you're still not an agent. And the next step is an agent. So like if you
I see.
don't
Yeah.
and like if you don't get promoted to an agent, you're kind of on that salary for many years, and that's what's hard for people who are trying to be an agent.
I see.
Like, yeah, because you are on the same salary level for many years. But if you work at a studio, then you get promoted, your salary sort of increases. Once you become like junior, senior level, like that salary jumps much faster than being at an agency and waiting to get promoted. And you can always come back to an agency. So you can start as an assistant, get your experience, go to a studio or work somewhere else. And once you are at an exec level, you want to become an agent again, that's still possible. So that's just what entertainment is right now. So, and at least it's a paycheck. It's not like you're freelancing.
Yeah,
So
that's just I think
it's
that's
more
just
stable in a way.
It's just
Yeah.
the state of the
Yeah.
market in the industry. Like I've heard that someone from Marshall who is working at like one of the big studios right now as like a data person.
Mm-hmm.
They're making like upwards of 100K a year.
Yeah.
Even though like yes, they're working in entertainment, but that's not like the typical. Like when you say working in entertainment, I think the assumption is that you want to do something like on the creative and representational side of things. But obviously, these corporations also need data analysts, and these are the more techie people and STEM folks who. Those jobs have a very high barrier of entry, and you really do need like a good skill set to be able to do so. Obviously, I think
Yeah.
the salary reflects that. So I don't. It's just the nature of the industry.
Yeah. Like you can make it work if you're willing to take that salary for years. But that's just generally for the whole entertainment industry. And that's why like if you come from like a rich family, it helps for sure. But I see like people, succeeding, but also you got to be willing to maybe take on a second job. You got to hustle your way if you want to make a living. And you might be 30 years old and you're trying to start a family and you're still, kind of on that salary. So it's just how you choose your life to be. And
I mean,
yeah.
I heard what you said for the second job, but I also hear like when you work as an assistant or an agent, that's like that's not a 9 to 5 job. You're
yeah.
working all day,
Yeah.
all
Most
night.
people work
It's
overtime.
24-hour
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
So like, is that something? What is your opinion on that kind of career?
I mean, that's just what the industry is.
Right.
Like, it's not ideal, but I guess if you're freelancing, you also don't really have like a weekend. Like you also, like you're just hustling. I feel like many people in the industry are doing it for a dream, or like, for your passion. And many people could be earning much higher salaries, but they're choosing to do this. And I remember hearing this from like an assistant while I was there, and I was asking them like I was thinking about getting return offers. So I was like, what's the percentage of people who come back after an internship, and like how many people actually stay at the agency and stuff like that. And they responded with something that was pretty vague, but I think makes a lot of sense. They said people who want to stay will always stay, or people who want to stay will eventually stay. And I think that's not just saying if you work hard you're gonna come back or you're gonna stay here. It's also like if you realize the money isn't good for you, you're gonna leave. If you realize you don't want to be an agent, you're gonna leave. If you realize entertainment just doesn't work for you, you're gonna leave. If you give up on your dream, you're gonna leave. Like if you just don't like the people here, you're gonna leave. So like it's just stick it through until you realize it's not for you, or maybe you win an Oscar. Like who knows?
I've heard the slightly different version of that,
Yeah.
where it goes, the people who make it are the people who are too dumb to give up.
Yes, that's a more poetic way of saying that.
And when I first heard it made me like chuckle a little bit, because it kind of makes sense. Like if you really just intellectualized all of it,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would go, yeah, no, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I might just drop out. But most people, I think they're really focused and so they really want to achieve that goal, that they just keep going, and they forget about intellectualizing everything, just go with instinct. And I think that's a pretty important part of navigating all of it, just trusting your
Yeah.
instinct.
Yeah, and I met a lit assistant who's trying to become a writer one day, and I was having a coffee chat with her, and I was asking like, how do you feel about the current, it was during the writer's strike or shortly after, and I was just asking like, how do you feel about that? Does that affect your dreams? And like, what do you think about the future? And she just responded like, if you believe you're good enough, you will always rise above difficulties no matter how hard the industry is right now. And I think that's like a type of mindset that people who are too dumb to give up have. They're like, I believe in myself and I believe I will stick it through no matter how hard it is. So, if you're, I guess, the top 5 out of like 1,000 people, if they hire 1,000, you will be hired. If they hire 10 people, you'll be hired. If you believe you are that good and you're willing to stick it through, then, you will always have a job. But yeah.
That's a great attitude. Yeah.
That's awesome. And something we do on the show is we have the previous guest leave the current guest a question.
Oh.
And this is the question that the previous guest left you. The question is, would you rather change genders every time you sneeze or not be able to tell the difference between, what does that say?
A
Did you write
baby
it?
and waffle.
What?
Between a baby and a waffle.
That was from our last guest.
It's
so
that kind of
random.
question.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
wait.
super offbeat, but
I want to say I'll prefer to change genders whenever I sneeze, but also that's assuming I'm living in an inclusive world where people don't like. Let's say like if I'm living in a place that's not the current USA, I think that would be a pretty fun experience. If like we're living in a vacuum and nobody's gonna be like, like committing hate crimes, then that would be really fun. But
Awesome.
yeah,
Great.
that's a downer.
no, you're good.
Okay.
If you were stuck at a deserted island, what piece of art would you bring?
Oh my god. Like any art, like even films and
anything.
This is so random, but it's the first one that comes to mind. Oh my god, I'm blanking on the film's name. Kiki's Delivery.
Oh,
The-
something delivery. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh my
that.
God.
Kiki's Delivery Service?
Yes,
Delivery
Kiki's
Service,
Delivery
yeah,
Service.
That's cute.
It was my first Miyazaki film.
Mm.
I was like 10 and I cried so hard, and I cry every time I watch it.
What is the message you want your audience in the future to take away from your art and your creativity?
Yeah. I think just me as a person, I like to explore uncertainties and humanities. And I really like this thing Andrew Garfield once said. He was saying something about like certainty is the most terrifying thing.
Have you seen Conclave?
Yes.
There's a
I
whole
love
speech
that. I love
about
that.
uncertainty.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Very fine. He just goes, uncertainty is the death
Yes.
of belief.
Yes.
Without certainty, no, I don't know how.
You say everything so much more poetically. But yes, exactly. So that's the kind of films I would love to make, or any kind of art that I would love to be able to create something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on our episode.
Thank you, Lillian. That was awesome.
Thank you.
And good luck on the
That was fun.
mailroom at
Yeah,
CAA.
Oh my
Really.
god, yeah.
You're gonna have a great time there.
Thank you.